But hello, I'm Rhonda.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well, hi, Tom.
Right.
We are up and running and recording.
I heard a short time ago from Ed Adrian that he has a hearing to attend and will be joining us in the somewhere around 10:15 or 10:30. So he's not going to be with us at the outset. And
I assume that's a court hearing.
seemed to be.
Thank goodness knows that the court runs on schedule.
So I don't see, I can't see everybody, but I can't see that Jean Albert is here. And she is changing over her snow tires sometime this morning, so she may be preoccupied with that right now. So why don't we get started? And I'll call the meeting to order at 10:05 a.m. We are recording the meeting as usual. I looked last night at the minutes of the November 16 meeting and seemed to me that they need a little work to be able to capture more of the work that we did at that meeting, and I'm going to take a swing at that possibly later today and send you a revised draft around. I don't think they're quite ready for action. Is there anyone with us from the public who would like to take advantage of the public comment provision on 312H of Title I? Don't see that there is anyone.
Oh, I'm sorry, Tom. I was reading the minutes from the 16th to follow up on your comments, and I missed what you just said. I apologize.
Oh, no, I'm just saying, I'm asking if anyone from the public wants to address us under the public comment agenda item, and I don't see that we have anyone, and no one is seeking to be recognized, so I'm going to assume that there is none. The next item on our agenda is to review, discuss, and potentially act on a final house district map. We believe that Jean Albert circulated some updates to her house map in the Friday evening time frame of last week, and last night Jeremy and Rob posted the results of their further work. And since I think we should hear from them now, the only remark I would add before we do that is I don't know that the board, everyone on the board is going to feel that they are prepared to take action on a final map this morning because of not having enough time to review what was posted. So let's see how that goes. I'll turn it over to Jeremy, you and Rob, and you could describe to us the work that you undertook to get to what you posted last night. That would be a good place to start.
Sure. Thanks, Tom. So, Rob, if that's okay, I guess I'll lead in, and then you can back clean up or something. So we went back and looked at every district. We went one by one and looked at the boards of civil authorities feedback for each one of them, and we're able to incorporate a fair bit of the feedback that we got. For the most part, it ended up being a tweak here, a tweak there. In some cases, though, it really required us to think about how we were building the neighboring districts, and if we could adjust the neighboring districts maybe on a slightly larger scale, while still respecting the feedback from the other boards of civil authority. So essentially, we gave a lot of weight to towns that said this is what we want. We also gave some weight, but a little bit lesser weight, to towns that didn't say anything and that we felt maybe were just acquiescing to the map that was there rather than specifically endorsing it. But we also took seriously, any towns that said, there's a configuration that we want different, and this is what we are. Whose really only feedback was we want a 2-member district. We tried to look in the narrative of that feedback to see if we could find out what it was about the 2-member district that was, kind of pushing them to think that was the most important thing, that was what their feedback was going to be. If there really wasn't other commentary about that under advisement, but we essentially tried to keep all one seat districts. So long story short, we made a lot of adjustments. I think it's a much better map than the one that we proposed. Rob was diligently taking notes and is probably most of the way or all the way through a district by district narrative and commentary for what we were thinking when we went and reviewed each of these. So yeah, I think I'll probably leave it there and hand it over to Rob.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not quite done with that district by district explanation yet, but my hope is to have that by the end of tonight for people to review. But yeah, no, just echoing what Jeremy said. We looked at the BCA commentary and tried to incorporate that into the single district map that we had proposed without messing with it too much. And I think we were very successful. I guess, some of the places where I think we did a really good job of listening and making good adjustments are sort of in the lower southern Chittenden County area with South Burlington, Williston, Essex. We were able to, for example, with South Burlington, create all single member districts within the entire confines of their border, so they're not sharing a district with anybody. With Williston really objected to being put into a district with South Burlington. So we solved that problem as well. Williston also wanted to be put into a district with either, Shelburne or St. George and possibly parts of Shelburne, which we couldn't accommodate because Shelburne and St. George were happy with the way the district was. But when you look at the changes that occurred, the population increases in Essex, basically you had Williston with a 2.5 member district now, and Essex with a 5.5 member district now. So it made sense along that Route 2A corridor to create the extra district of those two halves between Williston and Essex. But also in dealing with Essex comments, for example, they wanted Westford, which had been portioned off to another district, to keep their school district intact. And we were able to do that. We were able to keep Westford whole as a town in with a portion of Essex. So Westford's making Westford happy. That's just one example of what we were able to do to improve the map. How does the board want to proceed? Do you want to go through district by district, or do you want to, have you looked at it and you have questions that you'd like to ask about specific areas? Jeremy?
Yeah, if I could add just one more quick thing. One of the other things that we tried to do was when towns asked us to align better to ward boundaries, there were some cases where we were able to do that pretty easily and maintain the reasonable deviations. So we tried to do that more. There were some cases where they said, they were liking to follow the ward boundaries, and when we did so, it was not balanced by population. And so knowing that in a lot of those cases that those wards or those districts are going to have to be rewritten by the municipalities anyways, we didn't feel like that was super urgent. We just tried to accommodate it when possible. And then other times, we tried to make the districts respect the boundaries of things like villages and villages that were listed as a layer in Maptitude. I mean, there are other things that are other layers that are not in Maptitude that we probably could have followed, but I think the steps that we took, and you're right, Rob. I mean, I think of the changes that we made, those that feel the most substantial and the most valuable are those in Chittenden County, to me.
Can you give us an example, Jeremy, of the ward lines scenario where you found that the existing ward lines didn't work in terms of substantial equality of population?
Let me turn that layer on and see if I can find one. I don't have them.
It was Rutland, right?
Was it Rutland? Okay, let me.
Yeah, if you look at the 4 city wards that are currently single member districts in Rutland, you just couldn't carve that up into four wards without them being all light by around 10%. And then within the 3, we were able to keep 3 Rutland city districts. So honoring their request to the extent we could, but in creating those 3 Rutland city only districts, we had to adjust the ward lines because the population didn't meet the 3. You couldn't carve that up. The 3 wards were not equal.
Mm-hmm.
Population. Sorry, it was up late last night. I can't really speak very well.
And I'm happy to share my screen at any point if this is useful to go into Maptitude and show that. So just let me know.
Right. Yeah, I'm trying, just thinking out loud, trying to discern a good way to proceed. I had day job meetings that started at 8 o'clock this morning, so I really haven't done anything except glance at what you posted last night. And we could go take each of those 4 submaps up and have you try to describe what changed in them and so I don't think that's going to get us to the point of comfort and taking a final vote this morning. Then, but it might be a good idea to do it anyways, at least for you to give us highlights in each of those 4 segments of the map. That sound okay?
Sure. So Rob, I don't know if you want to do that from your notes, and then we can wing it as we get up closer to where the notes are lighter, or because I don't really have a side by side, but I could do that.
I'm not sure I have side-by-side notes. Why don't we start at the top map? And we'll just,
Okay.
Okay.
We have the map.
Would you like me to
Email, right?
that was emailed. Yeah. Would you like me to share my screen? I can also do that.
Yes, Jeremy, if you can.
Okay.
You should be the host now, Jeremy.
Thanks, Eric. Okay. I expect everybody can see that now.
Yes.
Okay. Northwest or northeast, Rob?
why don't we start with the islands, since we can cover that county pretty quickly.
Sure. So I'll drive, and you want to narrate, and I will do my best to fill in.
Just to state the obvious, the orange or lines are the House district lines, correct?
Yes.
And the dark gray lines are town lines?
Yes.
Okay.
So the Grand Isle, the Alberg, Isle Lamont, North Hero, and a portion of Grand Isle is the first. It's essentially the same as what we proposed in the first map, except for the fact that we have lowered that line of demarcation between that divides Grand Isle a little bit, adding more population to the northern district and taking a little bit away from the southern, which was then made up for in going into Milton, that second district, which is South Hero, a portion of Grand Isle, a portion of Milton, and that little bit of Georgia. A big reason that we did that was to accommodate Westford, which wanted to be part of Essex, and Essex wanted Westford to be joined with it. So we had to create make a change there. And Milton had a concern that the way that the district was configured before is that they're the largest town in the region, and there was a possibility that they would only have 1 representative where they should really have 4. So this gives it two of the districts are entirely made up of people from Milton. That little Georgia tooth, I grant you, is not ideal, but Georgia's too big, and it has to get sliced off at some point to make the rest of the towns a smaller district. It doesn't work to do that in Fairfax, certainly not as well as the configuration that we have here. I think it doesn't work to send Georgia into the northern towns because they're all heavy to begin with. You have to shift population all the way over to the Enosburg, Montgomery district before you could start making a population if you did that, and that would be incredibly difficult to do. Any questions on those districts?
What that central core district in Milton right there, what does that correspond to on the ground, if anything?
That largely corresponds to the village center, which is an incorporated municipality. So we're trying to respect the existing political subdivision lines there.
Yeah. So it's a slightly darker color. It's not really very bright. Let me just change the color of those borders to maybe here. How about purple? make it really pop out of there. So just the village here was not enough to justify a district, especially with the other districts that were, I mean, it was probably big enough to justify a district, but it would leave these other districts outside of it very large. But this was one where we adjusted the district so that it would include, you know, it doesn't follow the borders, but it at least includes that village.
Okay. And likewise, incorporated villages in other areas are popping up now in purple.
Yes.
All right. Is the location of that nub out of Georgia the same as it was in the earlier version? It looks a little different in shape.
It's closer to the lake.
Yeah. Okay.
And we would have liked to have done something that was sort of abutted the lake, but the shapes of the census blocks are just ridiculous and bizarre. And it would not allow us to do it.
Yeah, we certainly ran up against that in a number of different circumstances where, you know, neatly following one thing or the other was just not possible, or like kind of offloading some of a heavy district to a lighter district was stymied by having a very, very long census block that just really broke either broke contiguity or broke compactness seriously.
Okay. Anything to comment on in St. Albans City or that spot?
St. Albans and St. Albans City are essentially as we left them. I think we readjusted the district lines within the two cities to better try to match up with their wards, but we couldn't do so entirely, but there's a slight change there as we did it to the best of our ability.
Yeah, it was another one of the circumstances where there was just not enough in these individual wards for it to make up a district. So you can see we have some of these little cutouts here. We originally started by following this blue line here, but it just messed up the balance. And I should point out, this is also one of those cases where we have a higher deviation district, or actually a couple higher deviation districts overall, and that was in the interest of not splitting off you know, portions of St. Albans elsewhere, because we were able to keep it, as I recall, we were able to keep it intact with 3 districts. Yes.
Yep. And St. Albans, well, St. Albans Town BCA didn't chime in, but St. Albans City was very happy with what we'd come up with. They just said if you can tweak the city to comport to the ward lines, and we couldn't really, but we did the best we could.
How about swinging up to Swanton Way?
Yep, did we make any changes to Swanton, Sheldon? So was there a municipality, a village municipality in there that we tweaked the line to comport with, or we didn't?
No.
No,
Swanton Sheldon, it's the same.
Yep, it's the same. And then the Highgate, the Sheldon Swanton district to the right is the same. Highgate, Franklin, we did adjust the line in Franklin a little bit. You know, our hope was that we would be able to create 2 single member districts, a Highgate Franklin district and a Berkshire Richford district, but it was just too small. Or was it too, I guess, it would have been beyond any justifiable deviation. It was over 10%.
Jeremy, could you pull back up to a higher? Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so if it was just Highgate Franklin, it would be much too big. If it was Berkshire Richford, it would be too small. So
So
We decided to put,
that internal line in Franklin is different in this map than your last one, right?
Yeah,
Right.
we adjusted it just to balance it. We figured if we have to split it anyway, we're gonna adjust the deviation so it's as low as it can be.
yeah, previously Highgate Franklin was much heavier, and Berkshire Richford was, Berkshire Richford was much lighter. So this is a bit more towards equality.
Okay.
Let's see. Fairfield, Bakersfield, Fletcher is the same district as it is in the 2010 map. It's a little bit heavy, but we'll allow it to stay the same in the interest of keeping towns intact and keeping the consistency of the existing district going forward between the two decades. Similarly with Enosburg, Montgomery, there's no change there from what exists today. It's slightly lighter than we would like, but again,
Right.
In interest of keeping the continuity between decades and keeping towns intact, we thought it was justifiable.
And the Troy, the Newport town division looks roughly the same.
Yeah, I don't think we changed that from the first map at all.
We got some BCA commentary, not from the Newport BCA, but from some people in Newport about something on the east side of Newport City. Is that still the same as it was in the prior version?
Oh, I missed that BCA. I missed that comment. What was
Well,
it? We didn't do anything to it because we didn't think anybody had any complaints. But did we like miss a census block or something like that?
Well, the commentary, the email commentary, which I didn't take it anywhere, was, I mean, I think I shared it with everybody, but it was that on the east side, there's something called, not surprising, Prouty Drive. And that there was something there that cut a piece of Newport City and put it into the Derby-based district. I don't know if that was accurate, but that was the comment.
If it was unintentional and can probably be fixed.
Yeah, let me just take a peek here real quick.
Yeah, I don't want to bog us down on that, but that was
I mean,
and I thought that might have been because Newport City was too big.
The thing is, Newport City is its own census block. So I assumed that the census block comported to whatever the boundaries of the city were, but if it doesn't, then we might be able to make an adjustment.
it matches the municipality layer that I have. So when I click all of Newport City, I get all of Newport City, and so I mean, there's some weird shapes here, like this little block pointing out into the lake, but to me that it looks okay.
Okay, well, that may have been just a misunderstanding on someone's part. Any other? Go ahead, Rob.
Let's see. Should we keep going across the top and then come back a little?
Might as well.
Okay, so below Newport there where you have, well, let's deal with Irisburg, Albany, Craftsbury, Greensboro. The only municipality in there that had a comment was Irisburg, and they didn't want to be in with Craftsbury and Greensboro. We looked at adjusting that. Everybody else, well, Barton and Glover were cool with what they had. They both affirmatively said we like this district. So in order to accommodate Irisburg, we would have to upset those two municipalities. And though it's possible to create an Irisburg-Barton district and an Albany, Glover, Greensboro, Craftsbury district, the transportation situation. Looks like it actually works better the way we have it with the L. And one of the towns that Irisburg wanted to be paired with, that they said was not Barton. So I'm not sure we would be solving Irisburg's problem in a way that they would be happy with, and would be creating problems for Barton and Glover and the other 3 towns that would be affected. So we left those 2 the way they were on the original map. Coventry, Brownington, Charleston, and Newport is the same as the other map. None of those communities had anything to say. So we assume they're good with it.
Do you recall the commentary we got about the unorganized town of Ferdinand and what they wanted to be in with the rest of those unorganized towns because of their governance structure?
And I think where Ferdinand, does Ferdinand show up on this map?
Yeah, right there, you have.
It's
Right
it's
there.
here.
Yeah. Okay.
16 of them.
I'm trying to remember, there's a 3-member supervisory board that has jurisdiction over Ferdinand, Lewis, Avery's Gore, Warren's Grant, and whatever that is west of Warren's.
Well,
And
this map doesn't do this, but I mean, given that there's only 16 people in Ferdinand, we could probably throw them in there.
But you also kind of slice up Brunswick and Maidstone from
Oh,
the
yeah.
rest of this other district by doing that. I mean, there's a
Yeah,
road
right.
network.
You're right.
So I remember in the back of my mind, I didn't remember which it was, but yeah, doing so leaves a definitely not compact Orleans Essex 2 here.
Yeah, but that's wilderness. That's where I was this past weekend, is down that southern point. And yeah, right in there. And there's nothing there. The population of Ferdinand is up in the top by Route 105. So you got empty land there, and if I'm not mistaken, Ferdinand is in the Island Pond District right now. And it looks prettier to make it a block, but it can easily be transferred up if they want to be with Lewis and April and not April, the Gores up there. I think we can accommodate that. 16 people isn't going to throw anything off. And
well, you could, Tom, are you suggesting subdividing Ferdinand so that that chunk where the people live would be pushed up there?
why subdivide it?
Yeah, I don't think you need to subdivide it.
Okay, okay.
The whole town up there.
I'm just trying to understand what you're saying.
Well, the people are in the northern part. The rest of it is just land. So you can put the whole town up in that other district. Go up to the north part of Ferdinand.
Yeah, I did, and you're right. Most of them are up there, but there's 2 down here by Cow Mountain Pond. There's another 2 here by Notch Pond, and yeah, then all the rest are up here, right against Brighton. But I mean, so I guess to me, I don't really care one way or the other. It doesn't really change the balance much. I'm just thinking in terms of contiguity for Brunswick and Maidstone, which are slightly larger in terms of population. It cuts off access to the other towns except for these 2 roads here, which Tom, you would know better about the geography there, about whether this actually makes these reachable by from the other towns in the district without having to go through Ferdinand, or if that's, or you know what, maybe it's not even issue.
A lot of these roads aren't plowed in the winter.
I'm not sure it's an issue. I'm happy to accommodate Ferdinand.
So let's
It makes the district look funky, but if it works better and we can accommodate that, I don't see a reason not to do it. If there are two people that are living that far out in the wilderness, they'll be able to figure out how to get from point A to point B.
Okay. Let me do that right now.
Did you hear from Brunswick at all? I forget,
I don't believe so.
you know. Would make the district look a little prettier if we put Brunswick up in that northern district also.
Well, so now we're starting to push up against.
Yeah, no, that's not.
Yeah, okay,
That's a population issue. 16 people isn't
yeah.
too much, but 100 is.
So I got another 28. What is it?
And I also think that the southern district, the number's not on the map, is light. So
Okay.
both of these
Yeah.
are a little bit light.
Yeah, I just throw that, that's fine.
Yeah, this is at -8% now with moving Ferdinand. All right, where are we going from here?
Let's see, where do we need to go from here? Down, I guess, to the district that we just changed, Orleans, Essex 2.
Well, we did make one change. Didn't we change one of these towns here? They wanted to be Newark. That's what it was.
Yep, Newark, we removed Newark from that district. They asked to be put into a district with Sutton and Burke, which worked. And Sutton and Burke, Sutton said that they would be happy to have Newark in, so in order to grant their wishes, we put Newark into that Cal 4 district.
That makes sense.
And otherwise, with that, except for what we just did with Ferdinand, I don't think there was any change to the original map. Part we dealt with that one. We just dealt with Wheelock, Sheffield, Sutton, and Burke. Okay, going down, we did not change, although Linden and St. Johnsbury both wanted to remain two-member districts within the confines of their borders, but they both shrunk. It doesn't work for either of them. But, they're what was essentially 4 districts with Linden and an adjoining town. This is now 3 districts. So without criticism that was constructive, we left that district as it is. Cal 1, Waterford, Barnet, Reigate is the same as we had it before. Cal 5, Danville, Peacham, Broughton is the same as we had it before. Before we get into Washington County, let's scoot back over to Lamoille and get that out of the way. With Cambridge, we'll look at Cambridge and Fairfax with that little bit coming off of Cambridge. Fairfax did not like that, but we couldn't really find another thing to do. Fairfax is too big to be its own single-member district. They requested being put into a district with a 2-member district with Fairfield, Bakersfield, and Fairfield, Bakersfield, and Fletcher. But Fairfield, Bakersfield, and Fletcher did not want that. Cambridge
couldn't make up its mind.
Cambridge couldn't make up its mind. They were divided 5-5, and without seeing better solutions offered by either, and sort of a waffly whatever from Cambridge, we decided to leave it as we had it. And in fact, what Fairfax argued, what they said in their commentary was that this little section that we've sliced off to attach with Cambridge, the reason we did it as I know this area fairly well, is because you have that Route 15 corridor that connects the two towns, and there's sort of a village center area that both towns access, which is what Fairfax says, this is the most vibrant place. This is where people go to eat. This is where they go to do some shopping and you go to the library and the post office and things like that. Well, that's similar for those folks in Western Cambridge. So it actually makes sense. That if you have to do this, if you have to join part of a town, it's a part where there is a communication and economic activity that's shared amongst the two districts. So that remains the same. Johnson, Waterville, and Belvedere was happy with that as a single member district. Hyde Park and Eden. Hyde Park was, they were happy about, I forget which town, I think it was Hyde Park said that they liked this and preferred to be in a single member district, and Eden was silent on the subject. And
Rob, I can't imagine Eden being silent. Something.
the risk of having so many screens open, I can check my notes and see which town it was, but one of them said that this is good, would be better represented in the single member district. Stowe and Morristown connection. Stowe was reluctantly happy with the district given the necessity of splitting the town. So Lamoille 6 isn't an issue at all. Their request was that the segmented part of the town with Morristown be part of a single member district. If it has to be chopped off, at least chop it off and put it in with a single member district, not a 2-member district. Morristown, they wanted to be part of a 2-member district. What they requested wasn't really fitting with the rest of the map. Everybody around them being somewhat or entirely happy with what we had proposed. So this actually the Morristown district is a single member district, all encompassed in Morristown is the same as is the Walcott Elmore district with a portion of Morristown in it. Walcott, their commentary in this was that they wanted to be part of a 2-member district. But again, when you look at the Hyde Park and Eden are happy, Stowe is happy, Johnson is happy, Cambridge is Waterville and Belvedere are happy. There just wasn't any way to accommodate putting them anyplace else. Hardwick, Walden, Stannard is the same. They're happy with that remaining the same. Groton is the same. And okay, so now we're down into Washington County. Just a moment while I take a sip of coffee. Where should we start? Well, the Waterbury districts. Huntington and Bolton were both very happy with the new district as it was configured. I guess they're Chittenden County towns, but they're involved in this one, so we'll mention them. They're both very happy with the district as it's done. Waterbury wanted to remain in a 2-member district with Bolton and Huntington, but that would no longer be a consensual relationship. Waterbury also had a complaint about the little squiggle at the bottom. They thought that was strange. And we actually looked at putting in that chunk where the cursor is now and taking out the little tail at the bottom. But the problem with that, and I know this area very well, is that chunk of land is completely isolated from the district to its west by the Little River and the reservoir. So if they wanted to actually get to their district, they would have to take a road out to the east, driving east to get to 100 and then down 100 until they connected with 2, and then they'd have to turn west on 2 before they entered their district. So the reason for the tail is because it's that Route 2 corridor where you have the commonality of access and commonality of economic and cultural interest. That's the reason for it, and I call it a tail, but I guess now it's a lobster claw. We did adjust that a little bit as we were trying to make the folks in Waterbury a little happier with the configuration.
What is the deviation in the Huntington Bolton Waterbury district?
It's 194 for the district to the east and 243 to the district to the west.
194. So you could, does that mean you could reduce the size of the lobster claw if you were concerned about the compactness factor?
Yes, but it would be like 1 census block.
There's wiggle room either way. You could even out the deviation by making the lobster claw bigger, or you could expand the deviation but have less of the Waterbury Village in with the Bolton Huntington district.
The other way around, Rob.
Oh, sorry. Yes, vice versa. Yep.
So this is one of those cases where we ended up with weird census blocks that really give us, like that one, that make it much less flexible. So if we take this out, for example, this goes very low. The Bolton Waterbury district goes very low, and this goes, very high. But I mean, it's like that and this together are about the same amount, and so it was just a matter of this was this was how we could collect the most census blocks without it looking really, really weird. So, but yes, I mean, we certainly could take some of these blocks out and still stay within a reasonable deviation.
No, it's hard. And from this view, it's hard to see I could sort of barely see the census block numbers, but I don't want you to make it any larger because that'll diminish the value of.
Here, I can make the numbers darker. How about I do that instead?
So there's one block there that's 186 people. Is that what you were referring to earlier, Jeremy?
Yes.
Yes.
So let's just try it.
But see, the problem with that is it isolates another block that's 112 people.
Right.
And another one that's 9 people and another one's 58. So if you take that out, then you're stuck putting those others in there too, and that just blows it.
Right. Well, and it flips the percentages back the other way. It doesn't get you to 0. So we could conceivably take like this, then you have something more like a can opener, and that ends up being a more even deviation. But I mean, if we wanted to take less and do something like that, it can get us to 6.5 and -6.
Mm-hmm.
Or like these two. That's possible, and that gets us to 1.03 and -0.5.
Not better. Maybe we should do that.
Doesn't matter to me. I mean, let's see what these roads look like. Thoughts?
So what is the? I'm just babbling and traveling. You know it. Okay, I'm just going to ponder it. I wouldn't make any change at this juncture. Just thank you for walking us through that. The lobster claw.
Okay, then moving on, Middlesex and East Montpelier. I think those towns like to keep that relationship. East Montpelier was not particularly thrilled with having that little bit cut off to make up for population in Worcester, Woodbury, Calais. But we did try to find a way to accommodate that, but we just couldn't make the numbers work. But
Right. So, yeah, they were asking if we could shift this to cover the village of Adamant, which is right about here on the border of East Montpelier and Calais. And it turns out that we can't get reasonably balanced numbers without taking so much of East Montpelier, because there's not that much population here compared to over here on the northeast side. If we're taking out enough population, we end up with only a narrow corridor that's not even super well served by roads, and cutting off one half of East Montpelier from the other side of the district. So as I started to move things around, it sort of ended up migrating towards what we have over here anyways. So I ended up reverting back to what we had previously.
Montpelier, I don't think we changed Montpelier, did we?
I don't think so.
No changes. We didn't adjust the internal boundary line, but yes, that's now, that was 2 single member districts. It is still 2 single member districts. Greenfield, Marshfield, Cabot is the same as it was. Worcester, Calais, Woodbury is the same as it was, except for any changes that were made when we were trying to figure out how to fix that addition of the chunk of East Montpelier. Let's see, we're kind of at the bottom of our map here. But I can speak to the Duxbury, Moortown, Basin District. Hang on, let me open up. Well, while it's open, I guess we'll go over to Chittenden County, and then we'll go to Washington, the bottom half of Washington County with the other map. So starting at the bottom of Chittenden County, Charlotte and Heinsberg, both of those towns wanted to remain, well, not remain, but wanted to change to being single town, single member districts. And the numbers for that just don't work. I mean, I personally am sympathetic, and I think that they're close enough that a case could be made that they could be constitutional, but that's not a call Jeremy and I were willing to make. But that's something that we might recommend to the legislature as it goes forward, is to honor that.
So you moved that dividing line over to, is that over to Silver Street? Going from Heinsberg Village?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah, so we did change the line, and we figured as long as the town has to be split, we might as well get as even a deviation as possible. Let's see, moving up, Richmond is, as it was, a single town, single member district. Shelburne and St. George, we adjusted the line dividing Shelburne. There are the 2 single member districts in Shelburne based on BCA feedback, and it actually worked out to be better. So we're very happy with that on all sides. They're happy, we're happy. I think did I do a good enough job explaining in my opening remarks, Williston, Essex, South Burlington, that we don't need to go through them again, or you want to go through them again in more detail?
Well, just,
Sorry, Tom?
you mentioned, but South Burlington becomes 5 singles,
Yes.
and what is the range of deviations there?
Jeremy, you want to go through the?
Yeah.
you can see them better
Yeah,
than I-
so lowest deviation is minus 6.23, highest deviation is minus 4.22. So the average just ends up being like 5.5, something like that.
So they're all on the light side, but you get 5.
Yep.
One of the things I've noted that has nothing to do with almost anything is that the Census Bureau puts much of the lake into South Burlington, which I find very troublesome.
It does, yeah. There's like 15 people in this block.
I don't
14.
know, I don't know, I don't know where they are. I
Well,
don't
there
know.
is an island here. I don't think anybody lives here, but
No, nobody lives on Juniper Island. Fascinating that there's census thinks there's people.
well, unless there's a corner of this that happens to touch some address and they count it there instead.
Yeah, this
Right there. Somebody lives on the beach.
could, I guess. Not,
Yeah, so some of these census blocks are just bizarre. That one's just weird and not problematic, but there's.
what can you say about Burlington?
Well, Burlington, we left as 10 single member districts. It carves up pretty nicely. I think we did as best as we can to keep the existing districts as they were, but where they were 2-member districts, they're just, we try to find logical dividing points for them.
Yeah, I adjusted a couple of the boundaries to do 2 different things when possible, if it could be adjusted to match some of these ward maps. I mean, these ward maps are going to be redrawn anyways, but also to balance out some of the deviations. Like there was one district that had a surprisingly low deviation and others that had higher. So I think I got all of these down to a slightly more rational number. Like I remember one thing I changed was I added, I can actually show you right around the university. Which one did I do? Or maybe I was just imagining this. No, I added this little bit here and it balanced out these two districts somewhat. And then I don't remember exactly where I made changes, but there was just a little bit of reshuffling.
Okay. And in those lines, Jeremy, the non-orange lines are ward lines or the city council?
Yeah, the blue lines are the city council wards.
Okay. And Winooski,
Winooski's not changed.
so remind us, is there still a bit of,
No, Burlington and Winooski's town lines are completely intact. Their exterior town lines are completely intact, and it's Winooski's a 2 single member districts, and Burlington is 10 single member districts.
what are the deviations in the 2 Winooskis?
-7 and -6.4.
Okay.
Actually, like -7.1, -6.4.
What? Okay. I've been doing too much talking here. Mary, do you have any questions in this part of this, the map?
You unmuted in Zoom, but we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
It was a different unmute. No, I don't have any questions. This is very helpful though.
Okay. Jeremy, you want to just zoom in on Williston and Essex so they can see where the lines are drawn?
Sorry, I have a question.
Oh.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So you left Winooski divided,
Yes.
and what was the rationale for that?
Well, we're operating under the framework of creating an all single member district map.
Right. So Winooski's concerns don't matter?
Not in this framework. We want to zoom in on Williston and Essex. We can.
Here we are.
So yeah, just a quick recap. Because South Burlington did not want to be joined in, or have a district with Williston, and Williston did not want to have a district with South Burlington. We were able to fix and accommodate both towns in that with what we did with South Burlington, creating 5 all single member districts. So there are 2 single member districts in Williston that are entirely within the borders of Williston. In Essex, Williston being 2.5 and Essex being 5.5, it makes sense to have a combination of that. Those 2 halves be half from Williston and half from Essex. So you see that Chittenden 10-5 is the hybrid along the Route 2 corridor or Route 2A corridor, connecting the 2. Essex was very desirous, as was Westford, to keep that school district intact. And the way we were able to adjust the map does that. Westford is now in its entirety joined with a portion of Essex as it is now, although that district line had to be redrawn to accommodate new the population deviations, but it's essentially the same district that exists now. The other Essex districts we tried to conform to the village or Essex Junction, I should say, municipal town lines. But this was another case where we had some very strange census block shapes that we had to deal with. Otherwise, it would look a lot cleaner than it does. But I think we were able to keep everybody largely happy.
Could you, Jeremy, scroll over the Essex Williston one, just with the cursor? That's it there. Okay. So that's the portion of Williston that runs down North Williston Road to the river, and okay. And then runs in on River Road to Five Corners. No. Okay.
The connection, I think, is Route 2A. I don't know if that's also called River Road.
Yeah, no, it's not. I'm sorry. I'm confused. Got it. What are the respective populations in the Williston and Essex sections of that district?
Hold on a second.
Give a rough idea.
I can give you an exact idea in 1 second. All right, so there's 2838 on the Essex side of this. And there's 1442 on the Williston side. So 2 to 1-ish.
Does that walk us through the first of your 4 maps?
I think so. So do we go to,
Where should we go next?
let's see, we want to be middle top, right?
And I guess I should add at this point, given that we have 50 more minutes in the meeting, is this, should we go through the rest of the state like this? Is this
Well, that's
what folks want to do?
It may take us more than the remaining, it looks like it would take us more than the time we have remaining in the scheduled meeting to get through the other 3 segments. And we could try to schedule another hour and a half for sometime over the next day or so, and roll this up. I think Jean has other changes to her map that she hasn't had a chance to explain. And then point this towards a final map vote on the House for early next week. I don't want to schedule anything for Thursday or Friday.
Well, don't we have to have this out the door on Tuesday?
We do. We do. And maybe it would be makes sense to talk a little bit about that. What we did 10 years ago on the House map was by the deadline for the House map, we got a map to the General Assembly, to the clerk of the House by the scheduled deadline, and then the full written report went out the door a bit later. And I think that we could do something along those lines now. I'm not sure we have much of a choice, frankly. There's probably 30 or 40 hours worth of, or 20 or 30 hours worth of drafting work on the written report that hasn't been done. But I also am not sure it would be fair to take a vote on this new map without, if not continuing this process, at least to give board members an opportunity to, on their own, to figure it out and see how it's different from the prior version. Because people haven't had a chance to look at it yet. Any other thoughts about the timing?
I would think we ought to keep going and do as much as we can today.
Yeah, I think that's a good advice. I'm just not. We could I'm just trying to find some, look at the calendars, what's I can certainly, I could block off a couple of hours for tomorrow afternoon for that, to complete this walkthrough and to discuss Gene's map and the Senate map. Jeremy and Rob, if you had to move to of the remaining three segments, is there one that you think has fewer changes from the prior version than the others do?
Probably the south.
Yeah, the Bennington and Wyndham are pretty much.
Why don't we go, let's go there and see how we feel about things after that.
I would like to make sure we look at why Middlebury was cut into yet more pieces.
I agree. But let's see, let's jump down to Pownell and see how we feel about that.
Pownell and Stanford, there was a request by Stanford to be put in a different district, but the map remains the same as it was in our recommendation. It was also the same way it was in Jeannie's recommendation, just because we couldn't find any other way to really accommodate the request without setting off a bunch of dominoes throughout Bennington County and Wyndham County. So that remains the same. Let's see.
I do think there's a way to do it. But let me take another look and not take time right now.
Jumping north a little bit, just so we can sort of do surrounding the Bennington area and save that for last in Bennington area, because Manchester wanted to be a single member, single town district, and that's what we had them as, and that's what they want, and that's why it's the same as it is. Sandgate, Arlington, and Sunderland wanted to be in a single member district together. Their deviation is a little bit light, but we decided that given that the four towns that were part of that original two-member district wanted this to be the way it is, that there was an overriding argument to the heavy deviation change. Shaftesbury, Glastonbury, they were happy with that relationship, and we were able to make that work.
What is the deviation there?
662, negative 662. And so now we get into the Bennington. Oh, and Shaftesbury, one of the complaints, Shaftesbury and Glastonbury wanted to be in a district together, and Shaftesbury didn't want to be divided as it was in the previous map. So Shaftesbury is no longer divided, and they are put into a district with Glastonbury. So that should make both of those towns happy that we were able to accommodate that. Bennington, we changed up. There's now a Bennington Woodford district there to the right with a -5.4 deviation. There are two Bennington districts that are of Bennington, and then Bennington 2-1, which is also completely within Bennington. But there is that little bit, I should have mentioned, the Glastonbury, Shaftesbury has that little sliver of Bennington just to make up the population deviation in its district. So we did our best to accommodate everybody's desires in Bennington County, and so not a perfect reconciliation of everything. Some of them were irreconcilable. I think we did a pretty good job.
How many people is that taken out of Bennington and added to Shaftesbury?
You get that, Jeremy?
Yeah. About 396.
And just to revisit a sore subject, are you saying that it's impracticable to not do that?
Well, let's try it.
If you took 400 people out of a district that's already 6.32 light, then
Well, is it, is it impracticable to do that, considering that the Constitution permits us to use two-member districts to avoid doing that?
well, I think that the framework that we're operating under this map, Tom, is that we're trying to create an all single member district map.
Right.
So I know that's a tool in the toolbox, but there's nothing that says we need to use it.
Unless you can avoid dividing a town.
Where to next? Wyndham?
Yeah. Any changes to Brattleboro?
Jeremy, did we change the borders in Brattleboro, the internal borders in Brattleboro?
Possibly yes, we changed them a little bit to balance them out, and to slightly. I think I started to adjust these to match some of these, like, well, I guess not ward lines, these kind of municipal lines here, and it ended up adjusting some. No, you know what? This better. I think this better incorporated this, separating West Brattleboro from Brattleboro. It wasn't perfect, but as previously this portion came around, and let's see, I think it got a big portion of this up here. Yeah, I don't have the roads on. Hold on. Yeah, included a slice of West Brattleboro, so we kind of pulled that out and made so West Brattleboro was almost entirely within this western district here.
Any more thoughts, questions on Brattleboro? Okay, Vernon Guilford is the same as it was, and it's an almost perfect district. Whitingham, Halifax, Wilmington is the same, and it's almost a perfect district. Townsend, Newfane, and Marlborough is the same as it was in 2010. It's a little bit heavy, but again, keeping the towns intact and keeping the existing relationships from the previous decade together, we consider that an overriding factor to the high deviation. Dummerston and Putney worked very well as a single member district. Dummerston was in favor of it. Putney wanted to be in a two-member district including with Westminster. Let's see, going to the west a little bit, all of the ski towns and sort of this Wyndham, Bennington area, there was a lot of commentary from a lot of those towns about what they wanted to do, and we were not able to accommodate all of them. But I think we got most of them in creating this district that's Dover, Wardsboro, Jamaica, and Wyndham. Wyndham had been split in our last in our previous map, and we were able to unsplit Wyndham, which made them happy. And then that Stratton, Wynn Hall, Peru, Landgrove district accommodated some of the commentary about who wanted to be paired with what. Londonderry, all around the Stratton Mountain and the tourism. So I don't know if everyone will be 100% happy in those two districts, but I think they'll certainly be happier than they were with the original map.
Talk about Rockingham, if you would.
So Rockingham, well, we have the Westminster and Saxon River, which is that lower portion of Rockingham is actually an incorporated municipality that is Saxon's River. So even though the town line of Rockingham is disrupted, we did so by using another incorporated municipal line around Saxon's River to create two single-member districts. So well, I guess when you blow it up, Saxon's River comes on. So it's really a Westminster Saxon's River district and an entire and a full Rockingham district.
Were there any changes to the Springfield line, internal line?
Well, you're going up into a different map that I've got open, but can you scroll up, Jeremy?
Yes.
Oh, you're already there. I don't think we changed that.
Yes, it actually was changed slightly, and it was just this census block right down here, and that was just done to balance out the deviations. So I think this was above 6, and by adding this kind of north-south tall bit here, it made the balance better. But I think that was the only change that I made.
Grafton, Athens, I don't think any problem there. All right, I gotta open my other map. Or maybe I didn't have to open my other map.
I don't know, how far up does this go? To be able to still see a full.
The bottom map goes I'm going off the PDF in a sense. So I get cut off at Rockingham on my bottom map. So what's the next map that I need here? That middle top, I need middle bottom.
We heard we got a fairly detailed set of comments from Weston.
So Springfield, above Springfield, Cavendish, Wethersfield, Baltimore, they were all good with that pairing. Weston, yes, that was part of all the whole ski town stuff. Weston did not want to be put into the district where we had put them, so we moved them out of that district and we put them in with Andover and Ludlow.
Okay.
Which I don't know if it's 100% of what they were looking for, but it's an improvement over what they were in.
And then you've got Mount Tabor in with Danby and Dorset.
Yep, Mount Tabor, Danby, Dorset. And Timoth. Timoth wanted out of their, what we originally had was, there's a change here, is that Timoth was in its original 2010 district with Middletown Springs, Wells, Paulet, and Rupert. Wells in that district had been split, which they did not like. Timoth was wanted out of the district that they were in. So what we were able to do with this reconfiguration is unsplit Wells, which will make them happy, and move Tinmouth out of that district, which will make them partially happy. I don't think Tinmouth wanted to be in, I think, with Clarendon, which we weren't able to accommodate given what was going on, but we got them out. We got them out of where they didn't want to be, and we couldn't put them in where they wanted to be, but it's an improvement from, I hope it's an improvement from their perspective, and we honored what they asked for to the extent that we could. Wallingford, Mount Holly, and Shrewsbury, I think the comments that we got back from those ECAs were favorable to that district. This is where we've changed a little bit, because Pulteney and Ira in our original map had a chunk of wells in it, but in unsplitting wells, we had to find a place to make up for some of that lost population. So we went to that little corner of West Rutland to make up for that.
So you did split another town to avoid splitting wells, right?
Yes, but the thing is that West Rutland, given the way the population has shifted around in Rutland, it probably would have had to have been split anyway. Castleton, very happy to be a single town, single member district. West Haven, Fairhaven, and Benson. I have to check my notes. I think they were good with the configuration as it was. Benson had an issue. Oh, Benson didn't trust anything we were doing, but wanted to be all single member districts. It was a funny one. Windsor, West Windsor, going back to the right-hand side of the page here. They wanted to be all together in a single member district, which just didn't work with the population that the town, something had to give there. So that northern portion of West Windsor is paired with Heartland. Reading, Woodstock, and Bridgewater. This area here with Killington, Bridgewater, Mendon, Rutland, Pittsburgh, which is sort of splits the two maps here, unfortunately, because this is an area. Tom, you said where are the places that are, we save the complicated ones for last. That might be one that we save for last. But Bridgewater is a logical pairing with Woodstock and Reading. Bridgewater's main concern in their comments was that they wanted to remain whole, which this does allow. Should we, you want to Rutland or do you want to come back to it?
Well, what
Surrounding towns.
let's take a look at Killington, Mendon, Chittenden.
Okay, so this is we need to combine the mid-top PDF.
Killington, okay.
Just align my maps here so I can look at both of them at the same time and have it make sense.
So you,
Okay, what?
no, go ahead, I'm a lot going on.
So this whole area, Rutland, well, we'll start with Brandon, because Brandon is now a single member, single town district, and they're very, very happy with that. In our original map, we had Pittsburgh and Proctor making up a single member district, and both of them were happy with that. Unfortunately, just Mendon was split, and Mendon was very unhappy with that. So in order to make Mendon whole again, we had to split up Proctor and Pittsburgh and create a single member district out of Pittsburgh and Chittenden. Mendon was paired with the eastern portion of Rutland town, keeping Mendon whole. Killington, Stockbridge, and Pittsfield are put together as a single member district. And Bridgewater, which was in that pairing for the past 10 years with Killington, Mendon, and Chittenden, now gets returned back to its county in the pairing with Woodstock. So overall, we were able to keep a lot of the town. We were able to end the split in Mendon, keep the counties more contiguous by moving Bridgewater and creating another district with Pittsfield, Stockbridge, and Killington. So I think this is a little bit more disruptive to the 2010 map than we might have liked, but it works really well within the context of what we're trying to accomplish here for 2020. Looking into Rutland, some of the changes that we had to make there, their comment in Rutland was that they wanted 4 single member districts in the city to conform with the wards, and that just didn't work. But we were able to do 3 that were pretty roughly comparable to that. Those 3 in the bottom, and it's actually by bringing Proctor back into this equation. There's a little bit more content. It's similar to what's now. What's now is you have the 4 districts in Rutland, and then you have Rutland town as a donut. That is the along with Proctor. That is the other single member district. So this is actually closer to what currently exists, except for the Mendon being added in there, than it was to what we originally presented.
So what,
Is Proctor divided?
No.
No.
It's just joined with a piece of Rutland town?
Yes, as it was in 2010.
And then West Rutland is, how many pieces is West Rutland in?
2.
And how many is Rutland town? How many pieces is Rutland town?
3.
I see. So also just want to clarify, Proctor was not with Rutland town in 2010? The current district is
I think it's West Rutland.
the current
Oh,
district was,
it's Proctor West Rutland, excuse me. Yep, thank you.
yeah.
Okay, moving on. West Haven, Fairhaven, Benson, and Hubbardton. Hubbardton is split in this map. It was split in the other map. But we have adjusted that line so it's less split than it was. Hopefully making them a little happier than they otherwise might be.
Who's that, Rob?
Hubbardton.
Hubbardton. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we had them split in half down that that north-south line just continued sort of to the bottom. And we added back in that southeast section.
Okay. Sudbury. Sudbury would stay with where it was in your earlier map with Orwell.
Yeah, I think that's,
Shoreham.
I think that's the same. Yeah, Bridport, Shoreham, Orwell, Sudbury. I don't think we changed that.
And
So should we go over to the eastern part of the state and save Middlebury for last? So looking at Hartford, 2 single-member districts on the eastern side, and then joining with Pomfret and Barnard to form a 3rd single-member district. Royalton Tunbridge, that's the exact same as it has been for the past 10 years, and they're both happy with it. You have the Thetford and Sharon and a portion of Norwich, and then a portion of Norwich and Sharon to form 2 single-member districts out of the current 2-member district. Bradford, Fairleigh, West Fairleigh is the same, and we didn't hear any complaints from there. Corinth, Berkshire, Chelsea, and Washington. We did hear, which is a change from 2010, and it's a slight change from what we had proposed earlier due to the comments from Washington. The issue is Williamstown wanted to be a single-member district. The other towns wanted to be, that were in that 2-member district, wanted to be divorced from Williamstown and get out of the shadow. The only way to do that is for one of those towns that's not Williamstown to be split and joined in with it. And Washington, by virtue of its geography, drew that short straw. Now they had somebody, not in the BCA, but the comment that we got from the BCA via Zoom was that they did not like the way that we had split it along the north-south line. So we readjusted the line. We couldn't make it whole again, but we could readjust the line based on their comments to make it a better fit for Washington. Newbury, Topsham, Orange is slightly different from 2010, and I believe we had a comment from somebody saying that they wanted to be put back in with Corinth, but we couldn't find a way to accommodate that. So it is the same as it was in our original map. Then you have in Randolph, you have the majority of Randolph forming a single-member district, and then the rest of it paired with Braintree, Brookfield, and Roxbury to form a 2nd single-member district, which is, if not exactly, I think it's close to the 2-member district, just divided along that line in Randolph. Granville, Hancock, Ripon, Rochester, and Goshen form a single-member district. That was Ripon wanted to be more. Ripon, as we originally had the map, Ripon was oriented towards the west, and they did not want to be oriented toward the west. So we couldn't accommodate all of their requests, but we could orient them more towards the east, which seems to be a better fit for them.
I'm sorry, I don't understand that. You by adding a portion of Middlebury, is that what you're saying?
So I'll actually talk about
Yeah.
Ripton. So there's a mountain range right here. Ripton in our draft map was connected to Granville, Hancock, Rochester. There was not a road from Granville, Hancock, Rochester that would actually get to Ripton. So they said there's no, the drive time would have been too much and would have to go out of the district. So we essentially took Goshen so that there is a route now through this. And then to balance out the remainder, then we connected it into a good portion of Middlebury. So Middlebury wasn't part of dealing with Ripton's geographic concerns. That was, we added Goshen to this bigger district to manage that.
Right, but now this district stretches all the way from Middlebury to Rochester over the mountains, right?
Yes.
Doesn't seem very practical to me. I mean, this is my neighborhood, so I can tell you right now, it's way too big.
I don't think we took a pause to walk around Berrytown when we were at that juncture. Were any changes from the earlier version made there?
Wait, sorry, Tom, could we just stick with Middlebury? We just
Okay.
got to Middlebury finally. I want to know why you decided to make it worse than it was before, at least from their perspective.
Well, after spending several hours
When
working out the alternatives, this was what we came up with.
one, two, three.
Why did you need to change anything here at all? What were you trying to improve here?
All of the town, so a whole bunch of towns to the east. Let me just go back to my other window here. Towns to the east of Middlebury, Ripton, for example, Chittenden to the south. There was we ended up looking at a good portion of Addison County and redrawing a fair bit of it. So looking up here at Moncton, Starksboro, Bristol, Lincoln, this was a different configuration in our previous map, and we took the feedback from these towns to build these. Similarly with Ferrisburgh, Vergennes, Panton, Waltham, Addison, this was feedback that we were taking into account and trying to accommodate those.
Right,
so, I mean,
but I mean, Ferrisburgh is still divided, Bristol is still divided, and Middlebury is divided more than it was divided before. So to the extent that you were attempting to solve some problems here, it just doesn't seem like you really succeeded. In fact, I would say it's worse than it was before. So it's just an observation, but
Is Middlebury now in 5 different districts?
should be in 4.
1. What's that little nub on the at around 11 o'clock?
That's
town is-
Weybridge.
so Weybridge is split now?
No, Tom is referring to this little purple line here. This is part of Middlebury, whatever this village, municipality, sub-municipality, whatever, extends into Weybridge, Tom, and you're seeing that indicated in these census blocks here.
Huh. All right, that's that. I think I get it. That's just visually it looks anomalous. it's 1, 2, 3, 4. And what's that in the right in the middle, or almost in the middle of Middlebury? There's a loop there.
It's the village of East Middlebury, by the looks of it.
Yeah, and in fact, we tried to keep that district there focused around that.
No, I'm sorry. Further up the map. It's not a lobster claw, but it's
That.
no.
No, I-
The ice cream going in the middle, that's just a weird shaped census block.
Keep going down. There.
I think it's part of Addison 8.
It is, it's part of Addison 8. It's just a weird shaped census block.
All right, well, let's fix that.
Can't that go into the other one?
I noticed also you have Bristol divided in such a way that there's two pieces that are non-contiguous, even though they're in the same district. So in other words, you have to leave Bristol to get to the other part of Bristol. Right, exactly.
How's that, Gene?
Well, he's changed it now. I mean, there were three pieces, but then I later realized, okay, two of the pieces are actually in the same district. They're just separated from each other. But he's fixed it. Nevertheless, Bristol was pretty adamant about not wanting to be divided. You know, it's kind of a challenge because some of the time you seem to care about whether towns are divided and other towns you don't. So I can't really tell what your logic is exactly.
Well, I think we always care whether or not towns are divided. We try to accommodate it, but within the framework of creating 150 single member districts.
Right, but that framework, as we've discussed many times, is your own framework. It's not the legal framework. So,
Well,
it creates an arbitrary decision-making process.
Well, it's one that the majority of the board agreed to pursue.
Did you change the dividing line within the town of Ferrisburgh at all?
Yes, we did. Jeremy, you want to speak to that?
Sure. So in Ferrisburgh, it changed. We had, let me zoom in a little bit more. So we had Virgens, and I can sort of, here, I can actually just click on these. We had these census blocks here as well, something like that. I think that may have been it. Maybe a little bit more. Yeah, so we had these as well in this Addison. We were calling it Addison 4. We renumbered some of this, and so this was Addison 5. And I think we adjusted it so that the deviation would be more even.
All right, okay. I just noticed it looked different.
Yeah, just it's a difference of these handful of census blocks here. Oh, and actually, and by the looks of it too, shifting these northern, so like this to this.
And were there any changes made to Berry City or Berry Town?
No.
No.
And is the dividing line that cuts Northfield the same?
Yeah, so I did spend some time with this, and partially due to a really large census block, which is right here. It was extremely difficult because the population centers of Northfield are sort of scattered around. There's so in Berlin we have Riverton up here, we have Northfield Falls up here, but there wasn't enough in Northfield Falls for me to essentially kind of cut around this without making something that looked like another lobster claw. So I mean, it could have been possible if we grabbed, most of this western portion of Northfield, but this really terrible census block here was an obstacle to doing anything with the east side, and not really being able to find anything that was anything like balanced as well or as kind of easy to describe as Route 12 here. I ended up reverting back to that.
Jeremy, I played around with that a little bit over the weekend because I went to a meeting on Thursday night, and Ann Donahue showed up and she was not happy. And she had a large map prepared, which I have with me, with all the numbers scrolled on it. And I think as you cut basically right across the top of Northfield and attach it to Berlin, there's a way to make it work. And I think it's, right.
Does it work with the census blocks?
Well, I think you have to break that large, the Northfield Village there.
It's broken anyway.
Yeah, and you cut through just above, well, basically through the center of the village.
Could you send me a picture or a scan of that, Tom? That would be helpful. I can take a peek at it.
It's too big to scan. It's about the size of the screen we're looking at.
Do you have it here?
Yeah, I have it
Can you
here.
show it to me?
No, here. This is the baby.
Oh, crap. Can you go into minutes? Yeah, this is.
Oriented, yeah, so, yeah, so I'm gonna cross here. I think that works.
All right. See if I can hold it up. The lines on this are pretty light. You may not be able to see it. And I can't see myself on the camera. Is that at all helpful? And using my finger.
Utterly invisible. Sorry.
Oh, okay. So let me try to describe this, Jeremy. There's a line that goes. Let's see what the census block is here. If you go down, you see that 32 and that 5 on the screen? And 32, 34, 5, right in there, right along that line. Yep. I think you're going further south than this map does. But it basically follows whatever that road or river line is along that into Northfield.
So Union Street, Union Brook Road. So like up.
Union Brook Road, right? Okay, and yeah, and right above that 149 census block, it cuts sort of across the top of that to not quite 89, it looks like. And there's a 30 census block that it scribbles around.
You know, we got 2 more minutes in this meeting, and we need to schedule another meeting. Maybe you guys could do this.
Okay, we can do it
Later.
offline.
What do people think about recessing this until hang on, 2 p.m. tomorrow, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock tomorrow?
Works for me.
That's fine.
And
Works for me also.
we would wrap up the review of this.
I think we've pretty much gone through our map. I don't think
Right.
I don't think there's any place we've missed.
I know. I think people, for those of you who didn't spend, not all of us has probably absorbed it as much as you have.
Oh, I wasn't saying that we're ready to make a decision on it as a group, but I mean, I don't think that we need any more time to present it if people have questions.
There may be some follow-up questions, something that somebody overlooked, but I will try to send around a maybe a more detailed agenda for what I think we need to accomplish in that stretch tomorrow. I did yesterday, I think, sometime over the weekend, send out a rough working draft of the front end of a written report for the House map for your consideration. There's some placeholders in it for pieces that I didn't yet draft. I've thought of a couple of more placeholders. The draft doesn't yet address anything it doesn't reflect the work that we did earlier in the calendar year on the report of the Vermont Racial Equity Task Force. And I think we probably want to at least acknowledge the work that we did. Chris, are you in the meeting?
I am here, Tom. We'll be ready to support the board tomorrow.
Do you have any updates, just very quickly from your end, that you could share
Sure.
now?
Yep, Mia is looking for the latest file names for the most current house maps so that we can run reports. I think that might be helpful for you all tomorrow to see some compactness reports. It might flag some certain areas that need focus or at least might prompt discussion. So we'd be happy to try to get those done and provide them for you tomorrow. But if Jeremy and Jeannie can send the links to the latest maps that they have, then we can get those run through legislative IT. And if there's anything on that House report, Tom, and we can talk about this offline, but that you want Secretary of State's office support on and filling in, we can start working on that as well. And really our focus is just to have clarity, and that's, I think we're all trying to get the clarity around what the work is ahead of us, because you know, we're not a big team here at the Secretary of State's office, and we need to try as best we can to plan our time over the next couple of weeks to get you what you need.
Then let's recess and warn a meeting for 2 p.m. tomorrow. Hearing or seeing no objections, that is what we will do, and we'll stand.
Sorry, Tom, did you say 2 p.m.?
Yeah, I mean, it's arbitrary. If that is 1 PM is better for anyone in particular, that's fine with me.
Good time.
2 is good.
Okay. So be it. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.